Welcome to the Empowered Team podcast. I am very excited to have our guest interview today, Chris Dyer. Chris Dyer is a phenom when it comes to culture, when it comes to allowing companies, allowing individuals to truly create what's going to be effective in leadership. And I'm very excited to talk to him today. He has sport experience, Olympic level swim and polo experience. He has a background with all sorts of high performing companies. He's been sought after by companies all over the world. He's done cool things, which everybody knows. I love that kind of stuff. Adventures like Mount Kilimanjaro. Super jealous, just saying. I gotta get there. And he's been featured on big networks like NBC, ABC, Forbes. We've got all kinds of interesting experiences that you've had. Clearly, your value has impact. I want to hear more from you. How did you get into all of this work, this high performance consulting culture? What brought you into everything like this?
Well, it's wonderful to see you, and thank you for having me here. Um, I am an accidental everything. So probably like just my willingness to say yes and my willingness to chase things that seem fun and interesting is at least half the battle. I think it's so easy to like, I don't know, get a certain idea in your head of what you want to do. And I was always like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'll go do that. And then you do that and you have fun. And someone asks you to do something else and you go, well, that sounds fun. My buddy the other day said, what are you going to do for your 50th? And I said, I'm not sure yet. And he goes, well, let's go do a relay race and swim around Key West. And I go,
Okay.
okay, cool. I guess what I'm doing for my 50th. I guess I'm getting back in the pool, getting into swim shape again. It's been a few years. Um, but like just willing, I think just saying yes, right? Being willing to learn more and want to go down that path and not say no or put up the walls or the objections or all the reasons why you can't do something has gotten me into a lot of really fun things. Probably a few messes I shouldn't have been in, but a lot of great stories along the way.
It's really neat to hear you say this because you've said, well, the willingness to say yes, but every time you said yes, you followed it with, well, that sounds fun. Well, that sounds fun. So clearly there's probably an element of fun, excitement, curiosity to the things you say yes to. So that leads me to ask, what do the things you've said yes to, you've had some solid success. It's drawn more interest from other entities that you've been able to provide value to. You don't get to the top of sport by accident. That really takes something. So when you said yes, do you think it was that fun factor that helped you really succeed in it? Or what was it for you or what about you helped you succeed in those high performance areas?
Yeah, it's not always fun. I mean, I expect to have fun along the way in the journey, but sometimes those things were really hard. Sometimes they were, things that took a lot out of me to get to there. But, there's an element of I might have enjoyed the achievement. I might have enjoyed definitely enjoyed like the people that I was doing it with and being around them and being in that journey. Like it's funny, I swam for many, many years, but I think I remember water polo as much more of the time that I loved and enjoyed it. That's because it was more of the team element.
Yeah.
Even though I had a lot of successes swimming, like swimming is a very individual, you have your head down and you're going and you're doing your thing. Like in water polo, it's totally a team thing and hang out with your teammates and swimming. But I don't know, it's just there's something different there. Um, and so there's probably some element of like, who asked me to do it? Was it somebody that I like hanging out with? Okay. It's something cool. Like, I want to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That sounds like fun. That sounds cool. Right. And it'd be nice to have that. I think entrepreneurs and people who are in high performing situations are a little guilty of well, that'd be nice for someone to say at my funeral. Right. There's a little bit of that's like legacy resume building as well, which has its pros and cons. But there's always a little bit of that, like, what I want my life to be when it's all over and it's done. Do I want to have been super safe and have had done this, or do I want to go do all these other things that are fun and I don't know, memorable?
I like that, I like that fine tune, that distinction that you've noticed about entrepreneurs, just that they are looking to leave something. Maybe it's legacy, maybe it's being remembered, maybe it's something for their family, but entrepreneurs tend to have that. What else do you notice in CEOs or founders or entrepreneurs, the people who are willing to go in front of other people, willing to do things first, willing to do the hard stuff? What else is there that you notice is common to them? Because you've worked with a lot of high achievers, a lot of leaders. What are some other common elements that you see?
So they're smart people, and I don't mean smart like they came out of their mom and like were smart. I mean that they are lifelong learners. They continue to want to read, to be exposed to new things, to have their beliefs challenged, to go somewhere, to travel, whatever, and learn something new, and be willing to be a novice again, willing to make mistakes and to screw it up. And there's a certain group of people that get some success, and then they kind of guard themselves and they don't want to ever lose that, the little halo of I'm a success or I'm good or I'm whatever. And I noticed the best of the best are like, oh, I've never done that thing, let me go do that, and I'm going to be a total novice and a total beginner all over again. And that's hard. But they get so much out of that because they learned
Mhm.
something new. I'll give you a great example. I remember um, sitting in this little studio on a couch that probably should have been thrown away 10 years ago, right? And I'm listening to the terrible sounds coming out of all these rooms around me. And it was all of the lessons that my children were taking, the music lessons they were taking. Two of them were doing guitar and one of them was doing drums. And I'm sitting on this terrible couch with who knows what diseases on it, um, for an hour every, 2 or 3 times a week, waiting for them to do music lessons. And it suddenly dawned on me, what am I doing here? What am I doing with this hour of like, well, 2 or 3 hours a week of my life, other than possibly getting lice by sitting on this horrible couch? Like, what am I doing? And the answer to me was, I should go take lessons. If I'm here for this hour anyways, I'm sitting in this music studio, why not I go take guitar lessons? And so I learned how to play guitar in my 30s, and I went and had bands, and I went and did this whole thing with like music that I would have never thought I would have done. And it was all because I was okay with being a beginner again and struggling and learning something new, and also taking advantage of, here I have this hour and I could doom scroll on Facebook or whatever social media was going on at the time, or I could do something else interesting. And that's the thing I try to get people to think about when I'm coaching them or working with them. There are moments in their day, moments in their life when they are choosing comfort and they are choosing easy and they're choosing Netflix or TikTok or whatever for that time when they could just do a little bit of something that's going to have a big impact on their life. Maybe not right then, but the amount of impact me taking those lessons had on me for the next decade of like being in music and being in bands and having all those new friends and going and traveling and like having a song on the radio and like all these cool experiences, all because I wasn't willing to sit on that terrible, horrible couch and wait for my kids to be done making these horrible wailing sounds that they were making on their guitars that I couldn't stand listening to for one more moment. So
Okay, first of all, I love the story, and the visual is perfect. A, I've got 5 kids, and then B, it's been sport, music, you name
yeah,
it, for a very long time. But there's this point that is so profound because the majority of people are going to be tolerant of bored and embracing of complaining. And what you just described is very different than that, in that you notice that, oh, you're noticing your displeasure in various parts of it and going, well, what could I do? And you pointed to these lifelong learners as entrepreneurs and this being a novice again, not being afraid to be a beginner, which is that beginner's mind. Come to it without the I know. There was one point when my oldest daughter, I don't know if I've changed my parenting since then. She's 24 now, but at one point my oldest daughter would say, I think she was 8 at the time, and everything that came out of her mouth was something along the lines of I know, I know, I know. And so I was fining her something like 25 cents. No, no, okay, don't judge my parenting right now. But point being is that when we're in that I know mind, it shuts down everything else.
Hmm.
When we're busy being the judge of everything and when we're busy being comfortable with everything, then there is no innovation, there is no creativity, there is no ability to try something new. And what a great example of that, because at whatever age, whether it's 20, 30, 50, whatever age, we all get stale and it's our own doing. So you bring transparency, positivity, innovation into cultures. So you have a book that's specifically about this. Tell us a little bit about that so that the listeners can get some nuggets to apply to their business or get some nuggets to apply to their lives that, what does this look like? That it could be a family culture, it could be a small business culture or a large business culture and larger organization. What are some of the things that you've really found work in your experience with business?
Well, back in 2008, we had a big recession, and I was sitting in my office thinking, is this it? Am I going to have to shut this thing down? We had lost 40% of our clients. We lost 40% of our receivables. And I walked out to go talk to all my employees. I had thousands of people working for me. And I said, we need fresh ideas. We need to figure out how we're going to save this company. I need everyone's help. I need everyone to think and to really, whatever it is that we can do. And they all stared at me. You could hear a pin drop. And I realized in that moment, I remember sort of like turning and seeing my reflection in the glass part of my walls on my office. And I remember like seeing a glimpse of myself and thinking, well, this is your fault. You've done
Mm.
this, Chris. And I had not created the culture where people feel like they could come to me with ideas. I did not create the culture where they could make mistakes or that they could try things. It was the culture where I'm the smartest person in the room and I have all the great ideas and I'm the owner and I'm the CEO and you all are the doers. You go and you execute. I'm the idea guy, you're the doer, and I'm going to come around and we're not going to fix sales and we're not going to fix that software. We're not going to do that thing until I decide it's a good idea or I come up with this great idea. Now, it sounds terribly egotistical and I wasn't like thinking of it that way. I thought I was
Yeah,
doing the
and
right
that's
thing.
most leaders. That's most leaders
Right.
because it's an insidious change, an insidious evolution that starts to happen. And when you're busy growing and doing, you need people to do the things. This is what people are experiencing in their own businesses, especially if they started their own business and the product had to do with them.
Right. 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 You were the expert, you were the one who had to do the thing, whatever it is. And so I had to go on this journey of trying to figure out, well, what is the right culture? So I went back again to being a novice, being a beginner. What am I supposed to do? And there wasn't a clear answer. There were answers, but there wasn't like to me this blueprint of, I don't know. You want to learn how to play blackjack. There's like, you want to learn how to play poker. There are books that will tell you an exact strategy, what you need to do. You pick the one you want, but like it's very clear on what you're supposed to do. And I didn't feel like at that moment in time, I could find that book
Mhm.
or that framework or whatever. And so it set me out on a journey to discover what that was. And ultimately, years later, they asked me to write a book. Excuse me. And the book is really set up in three parts. First part is what do you have to do in your business right now not to suck? What's the bare minimum So
Most people stay there. Like that's the
oh,
infant and the toddlerhood of business. Most people stay there.
listen, I wish you were right. Most people are suck. They're in the suck and they don't even try to get out of that. They're like, oh, we have a great culture. We have Beer Friday. We have ping pong tables and I have
Exactly.
an open door policy. Yeah, you do. That's not culture. That's not you. You're totally missing it, right? So, what are the minimum things you have to do to have a good culture? And it still might not be good, but at least like do these things. And then the second part of the book is what were my discoveries and what are the things that we've proven and gone back and tested and used in countless organizations. I've worked with NASA and Gary Vaynerchuk's company, VaynerMedia, Southwest Airlines, Neiman Marcus. I mean, just all these great case studies, Caesars Entertainment, and put their stories into the book and talked about how they exemplified maybe one of those 7 pillars that I just have. I didn't discover them, but I articulated them on what I was seeing. And what's really interesting is if you do that, that will give you the best shot at having a great company culture. The third part of the book is if you've decided I'm right, if you think I'm not crazy, and you're like, this seems like a good idea, then how do you actually do change management? How do you get people to change and to do things differently? What are those lessons that I had to go through? What are some real tactical, practical things that you actually can do, whether you have a team of 5 or you have a company of 5,000? These lessons are very applicable to every leader at every level on what they need to do. And I'll tell you that fast forward when we were in COVID, we had the same problem. I didn't walk out of the office, but I turned on the Zoom and I had the Zoom with thousands of people. And I said, we're in trouble again, right? People are not hiring all of a sudden. In fact, the government's basically paying people just to not move. And so no movement, no hiring or firing was bad for our business. We needed employee attrition as a part of that natural thing that we made our money off of. And I said, I need everyone's help. I literally gave the same speech,
Yeah.
right? And by the next day, I had 15 fantastic ideas, one of which got us a huge feature in Fast Company. We added on an additional $1 million in business in like 3 months by pivoting and doing some things that were really important around COVID time. That not only saved the company, but had us grow that year in a year that everyone else was going down, everyone else was struggling. And so that to me was the epitome of like the proof, right? We had done the work. Here it was, more than a decade, 12, 14 years later, whatever it was. And we had changed the culture and been doing all these great things. But the real test was when we had another struggle, how did my employees actually respond? And they came up with the ideas. They went and developed it. They went and made it happen. And they saved us, right? Instead of it having to be me as the owner trying to be the one to save them.
It's so interesting. Even though it was them who and the group environment and their innovation that had those ideas and had that change, it still is spawned from your ability to either stop certain patterns or start new patterns instead of continuing the old patterns. You becoming more perhaps I'm gonna ask these, but more self-aware, have more self-mastery, start to not just assign duties, but rather give ownership to people more so. Does that sound like some of what occurred?
Yeah. I mean, I had to prove to them. I'll tell you, anyone who's listening, if you want to text me 33777 and you put my name, Chris, as the message, I will send you like a cheat sheet on how to do this. Okay. So my free giveaway. Um, I started asking people one question every week. And so this thing I'll send you is 25 starter questions to get you going. And you can do this if you have 5 people on a team or you have 5,000 employees. And by asking one question a week, I showed them that I was going to listen. That's one of the pillars. And then I told them, this is what I heard, and this is what I'm going to do about it within a week. So
Right.
if I asked this question on Wednesday, by the following Tuesday, I had better have told them this is what I heard and this is what I'm going to do about it before I asked them the next question. Right. And so I was able to create small changes and small movements, create psychological safety that I'm going to listen. I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to like take your thing and go, oh, this was John. John's always complaining. We don't like John. We're going to fire. Like I never, we never did any of that, like, uh, sort of revenge, right? Because,
Selective, selective. Yeah.
right. Or like, totally ignore these questions and like, we're just act like they never asked us about that. Right.
Yeah.
Mm. And so that was one of the things, one of many things we had to do, right? Is create this environment where I'm going to listen and I'm going to do something. I'm going to show you that I heard you
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is really powerful, and it speaks to some of the things that we've not only coached on but covered in past episodes. So I love that you're reinforcing some key things, but in different language and different context. Things like, for instance, you had mentioned the how to get people to change the management overall, them managing change. It's hard enough to get an individual to change for themselves, let alone have other humans do the changes. Like that in and of itself is such a challenging thing. But the process you just described is so powerful because it's the incremental, consistent trust building. There's that saying, trust is lost in buckets and earned back in drops.
Mm.
And the questions that you're doing, and it's been researched plenty of times. I don't know if you're familiar with the researchers, the relationship researchers, John and Julie Gottman, but it's exactly that. It's these incremental, consistent actions.
Yep.
And the thing about and having kids and being in workplaces and employees and things like that, the thing about when you're telling someone you want to hear what they say, you're telling someone I'm going to listen to you, but then you don't. It's one of the biggest rifts in trust. So the thing you described, I think one of the key, most important things about it, yes, you initiated the questions, but that critical part is stop and just wait and allow them to answer. And if they haven't answered, ask them for their answer because you show that that interest is there, and then wait again and really have that patience. Whereas I think that for entrepreneurs and leaders, we tend to be, as achievers or overachievers, hard driving humans. And sometimes the patience factor is a little bit low on the scale. So this exercise is very powerful, not only for the people that you are teaching that you genuinely want their input. They learn to trust you, and then you're teaching yourself that, okay, just have patience. Here we go, step by step. Let's just see what happens. Let's stick with the process. Just like in sport, stick with the process. Yes, we're focused on the long-term picture, but we're also focused on every step in the process in order to get there. Really, really powerful. I'm reiterating it because I really want the listeners to remember this part, because sometimes it's so easy to skip over and it's so costly to do so.
You mentioned patience, and most of us entrepreneurs are not very patient, which is why we can have success in areas, because we don't wait for permission. We don't wait for everyone else to catch up. We don't wait to make that change, and we go, 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 go. And again, it's like, oh, Emerson said, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And so when it comes to managing people, sometimes our lack of patience gets in our way. And where that really showed up for me was that people would come into my office and they would tell me the problem, or they would tell me what they were dealing with, and I would just give them the answer. Like, I already had done that. I've already traveled down that road 15 times. I know the answer, or I know that client really well. I'm the one who signed them up. They're whatever. I know the answer. Okay. I mean, it's
Ask
like
her to do that anyway.
right? I mean, it's like you come in and tell me, should I put water on my tomatoes or Diet Coke? Like, which one am I supposed to do? And as an entrepreneur, like we're like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm impatient. Here, just it's water. This is how much you water them. Go do it. And what I had to realize and train myself to do was to tell them, what do you think we should do? And unless they were going to get somebody hurt or get us sued or lose, $1 million in business, even if I knew they picked the wrong decision, I let them go make the wrong decision. And so if they were like, well, Diet Coke seems like a great idea for my tomatoes, cool. Why don't you go try that and you let me know how it turns out? And then let's talk about it. And I had to let them go and try it their way. And I had to let them go and fail, because if they went and failed, they learned it and they could figure out how to make a better decision next time. Every once in a while, I was wrong and their way of doing it was actually better. And I wasn't the right about what to do. We don't want to admit that we can be wrong, but there was definitely those moments where they came back. I'm like, Diet Coke really made this tomatoes go great. They're like, oh my God. But anyway, but it was really about them learning that I trust you to go make this decision, and I need
And
you to go make it.
it's such a good thing, because lo and behold, in that process, which ultimately is to cultivate their growing, there's this byproduct of you also learning more about them and about yourself, or something that they might have gleaned from the process. So really, really powerful. I really I'm excited by all these nuggets so far, and I really want to make sure that we get to some things that might be a little more sensitive for you or for other people, but this is where we really grab the great stuff. Um, you've had some solid successes. You raised children. You shared something that you wouldn't ordinarily share in a bio, your grandfather. There's some real things in your life that have happened. What would you say was one of them that was one of the hardest things to overcome, or one of the hardest struggles for you? And how did you overcome it?
Oh, one of the hardest struggles to overcome. Um, yeah, there's been a few. So I think one of the challenges of being willing to say yes and go try things and to do things that maybe not everyone else will do is that sometimes you run into a brick wall and it hurts. So, not everything went well. We adopted 3 kids. Not everything has gone easily with them. They've had their challenges and they had a lot. We adopted them older, so they were 9.5, 8, and 4.5 when we got them, and so they had lived a very hard life before we got them, and we, in our nativity, decided that we could solve anything, we could help anyone overcome anything, and that's not necessarily true. So that was a challenge, and currently my grandson is living with us, and that's a whole new challenge of something that I never, doing that all over again. Um, and I skipped diapers by adopting older, and like now I had to actually change diapers again, which
Oh, how funny how that
I think our
happens.
life was like, oh no, 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 you're
No,
not
you don't
there.
get to skip this part, buddy.
But I'll say of all those, my wife went through some really challenging health issues, and trying to navigate that, right, as she was the one in pain and she was the one going through all of this, but like at a certain level, like I had to navigate a lot of that for her, because there were moments during that time when she was not at her best or really able to handle all of that. And so you're having to and I remember like it was supposed to be her last surgery, and they came to me and said, we noticed something else and we really need to go back in there in 8 hours and we're going to do another surgery. Is that okay? And it was like the first time I could not have a conversation with my wife about
Life.
her body, her thing, what she wanted or not want. And I had to make that decision for her because she was unconscious, and hopefully I'd make the right decision, And so those are all like really challenging moments of, sometimes as leaders, we are at the absolute, we're the spear, right? We're at the tip at the end of the sword sometimes, and having to make tough decisions and having to break through, that brick wall, or whatever that challenge is. And it's not always fun and it's not always easy. Um, but and always in reflection, I think, would I wanted anybody else to make that decision though? Would I have wanted anyone else to do that? And the answer is probably no in most cases.
Mhm.
So, I'm very blessed and have been able to do a lot of great things and accomplish great things, but that just as many, failures, just as many tough things, just as many things that, certainly built a lot more character than they did, you know, create harmony. So
Those challenges, when you've got adopted children, you have a grandchild living with you, you've had your wife go through significant health issues. How does that change you as a leader? How does that change you in your how you coach or how you consult? Like what has that brought to you?
it definitely brought, like, during that time, I had to fully lean on my senior team and the leaders in my company to really do more than I had expected them to do. And that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because maybe there would have been some part of me that would have just kept clinging on to the last little 5 or 10% and not give up completely all control, or all, whatever. And during that time, it was like, come to me if you need me. Here's our, again, here's our values. Here's what people like us do things like this, and people like us don't do things like that. And I trust you all to go make the decisions, but go. And if I'm not available and I'm sitting in the hospital because I'm dealing with this thing, like, I make the decision. And if it's wrong, we'll figure it out. And
It's
so it was a blessing to give me that last bit of, like, pull the band-aid off. I can't make all the, I can't be, I literally can't make any decisions for the next year. And someone else had
uh,
to do it.
I think of situations with clients, and it's things like the loss of a parent, or um a complete exodus of some key leaders in the company, or just
Mm.
different things that have gone on that the leader has been in a space of not knowing what they don't know, meaning they've never been in that position before. They don't know what's possible, and they'll continue to operate roughly the way things have been, even though they're very innovative, even though they go forward. And then it takes this kind of earth-shattering situation that is disruptive, and they learn how great their team is, or they learn how much they sometimes it's the little things they learn, sometimes it's something momentous, but it's amazing how that the areas of needing other humans, the areas of our own frailty in being human, that we really discover the strengths and weaknesses of our group, of our culture, of our own leadership, of who we really have behind us, who we don't. It's a really powerful thing. Um, I'm going to, right now, is there anything that you are really, I'm going to ask two questions, really uncertain of or fearful of? And then the other part is optimistic for.
The uncertainty and fear is certainly in the world of politics. There's a lot of change, whether you are in agreement or disagreement with the current administration. I certainly view it as being a lot of chaos right now. And so what does that do to the markets? What does that do to business? What does that do? Uh, Again, you may believe that that's better for the long term, and you might believe that that's worse for the long term. To me, that's sort of irrelevant in the sense of your question right now. It's in the short term, what is the disruption and what is the potential negatives or downsides of some of the stuff that's going on. That is one area that I am, thinking about. How do we deal with that uncertainty, and how do we help organizations deal with some of that uncertainty right now that they may be having? Are products they buy going to have tariffs on them? Will trade be changed? I mean, all those are all important questions that are really business questions. They come from a political source, but they're not really political questions, or they're business, real life. How is my business going to be impacted by whatever those decisions may be? And so that's something I've been spending a lot of time with.
Um, you're in California, I'm in Canada, so little familiarity with some of the potential
I mean,
disruption.
you're going to be our 51st state apparently. So right
Right.
there you go.
Bro, you're there, so interesting. Yeah, or we're just like the best friend. Why do you want to treat the best friend like friend? I don't know. Anyway, just saying. Um, and what about that? That's definitely got to come up for businesses. It doesn't matter. There is no surefire uh answer for any of the political decisions, but it does yield uncertainty, and then in uncertainty that ends up putting stress and strain on leadership teams, on employees, on companies overall. The more stress and strain that are there, the less the productivity is there, the less the cohesiveness is there, and so on. What about the opportunities? What are you seeing opportunity wise?
I mean, certainly, and I'm doing a lot of work with companies now around understanding what they can do with AI and why that's important.
Oh, so
Um,
excited.
I don't. I think it's a big mistake for companies to spend too much time worrying about how right now. The how keeps changing and the how is evolving. And I'm seeing organizations getting stuck in the how.
Mhm.
Um, there are great partners and great companies and great consultants and incredibly smart programmer people that like understand the how, and you just need to team up with the right person very quickly. What businesses need to be thinking about again is what can they actually do with AI? What is it that would be important? What can they change? What will have a huge impact on their company? And why is that important? And why should they do it? Or why should they not do it? Or answering those two questions and then go find the right partner who knows how to do the how is going to keep them at the front. And the
Mm.
companies, obviously, that are ignoring it are going to be, dinosaurs. And those that are gets in that quicksand of how are going to find that they're, woefully behind until their competitors figure it out, and they just have to try to copy them, and it's not going to be as good.
Mhm. It's interesting you say that. I've noticed that some companies are so immersed in their typical day-to-day company problems, where one of them is in tech, another one is in consulting, another one is in food supply. And they're so immersed with the day-to-day problems that AI just feels like another thing to try and keep up with, and they know it's evolving so fast. So then even if they were going to get into it, that just it's too much change, too much to learn, that kind of thing. Myself and my co-author just finished a book that's all about teaching people as individuals or as companies to create their own ethical philosophy around AI and what to do with it. Because if they don't, I agree with you fully. If they don't, they're going to be left behind, because it's been the fastest moving thing that we have seen, way faster than the industrial age, way faster than the onset of the web, World Wide Web, and the technological age. It is just unreal. So what it sounds like you're saying is that if people don't integrate some version of AI in order to create efficiencies or maybe greater productivity, they will not be able to compete with companies who are integrating AI. Is that what you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we saw people who ignore the internet, that ignored computers, that ignored cell phones, that ignored, there are certain technologies that came and went, pagers and Betamax and things like that. But it was the evolution of certain technologies. But AI is not one of those ones where, it's here and then it's just going to like disappear. It may continue to evolve, but it's something that we've got to figure out. And this is, really at the heart of one of my keynotes that I do on the future of work is, if you look at how much change, if I think up to my great grandfather and how much change he had to deal with in his life, He went from, you better drive there to, oh, we can fly there. If you can afford it, you can fly there. That was the biggest change in his life. Now he went through the depression, he went through the Dust Bowl, he went through, all of these other really hard things, but from an innovation standpoint, he went from drive there or you can fly there. That's it. And there was maybe some steam power to water power and steel from iron to steel and all. But like really, if you think about what is it he had to wrap his brain around that he could get on an airplane. And then I look at my life and say, well, what have I had to deal with from a change perspective? You know? And that was computers and fax machines and the internet and pagers and cell phones and then the internet of things and now AI. And like the amount of change is happening faster and it's happening in shorter, the waves are happening in shorter bits of time. So the wave that my great grandfather would have done is in 60 years, that one or two changes would have been there. And in the last 15 years, I've had like 10 changes. And so it's overwhelming for business. It's overwhelming for them. And what they have to figure out is how do they become the sense makers? How do they help their client simplify, make
Mhm.
sense of things, and be the one to bring clarity and simplicity to the solution by utilizing these technologies in a very complex way in the background, but to be the ones that are saying, I can make this easy for you.
Yeah, I completely agree, and at the same time, the younger generations and our generation and the businesses, there's so much change, and then there's the byproducts of all that change, which is increased stress, which is increased buffering type behaviors or overusing behaviors, whether it's substances or screens or whatever. What would you say amidst all this change, because you have business, you are navigating change, you have family. What is your coping mechanism to get through and deal with this much change? Because I know that most of the clients I have are men, and it's often work as a coping mechanism, tasks, busyness, and sometimes that's still emptying our cup instead of filling our cup. So for you personally, what would you say are some of the most effective coping mechanisms amidst all of this change?
Yeah, and this won't work for everyone, but if you have a more typical sleep pattern, meaning like, you tend to wake up in the morning and that's a normal time. If you're a night owl person, this may not work. But a much smaller percentage of people are the actual like night owls. So I had been avoiding the book, The 5 a.m. Club for years because I didn't want to start waking up at 5. I'm like, this sounds terrible. But I will say having that time at 5 a.m. to go walk the dogs, do exercise, to meditate, to do those things first thing in the morning before anyone is around to bother me, before anyone is there to ask for my time, and to have those distractions to sort of get in the way, right? And so I have that time of meditation where I can think about things and get very clear. I can do a little bit of journaling. I'm not a big journaler. So if anyone out there is like journaling, come on, Chris. Like I can do it very like shorthand of like, what am I thankful for? Like, what are the things I need to work on? I mean, I can do it in like 8 sentences if that's what I want to do today. And I can do it in 8 pages. I've never done 8 pages. I can do it in 25 lines if that's what I want, right? Other people write a lot and that's fine, but I'm just most people I know, most entrepreneurs I know, it's like, little chicken scratch a couple notes and we've gotten it out of our system. But just that stuff, right? Of doing that consistently, exercise, meditation, and that little bit of journaling and setting up for my day has had a huge impact on my ability to be able to handle all the stuff that's going on because I'm doing what we were talking about earlier with culture. I'm being intentional about what are the things that I really want to do, what are the things I need to do, and then anything else that comes into my, atmosphere, I can decide if that's fun and cool and I want to do it, or whether or not it's just a distraction. It's not interesting to me because I'm very clear. When I was waking up at 7, then it's like, well, I gotta go. I gotta brush teeth. I gotta get dressed and go, 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 go. And had not set myself up. And I kept saying, well, I'll meditate at 3 and maybe I'll exercise after work. And I wasn't doing any of that stuff, not consistently.
And everyone else's urgent becomes your priority instead of your own real priorities.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I really appreciate that because when people listen, they make assumptions about what someone's life is like. And so to hear some of those real tangible examples of what are you actually doing and what has really made the difference is very helpful, I think, for listeners and people going through their own struggles.
The
So
second thing is to make sure that you have a community. So being a leader or being the owner, especially, is very, very lonely. And the farther up you go up the ladder, like the less oxygen there is up there, and there's nobody else hanging out with you. So go find that CEO group. Go find that group of other business owners or CEOs or leaders. Um, now that I'm a speaker, like I have a speakers group. I have a group of people I meet with every 2 weeks, and we commiserate and we talk and we support each other. And it just you need those people around you who understand the crap that you are just slogging through today. And even if they can't tell you anything that's going to fix it, there's the fact that they can support you, they understand it. I mean, if I complain to my friends about some of the stuff that I have to deal with as a speaker, they roll their eyes at me. They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
you
they
need to
don't
go."
get it. They don't get it.
Right.
Yeah, no, they don't get it. And it's because it is a different world and it's a path that few take, not many. So it definitely, and it doesn't mean that that's any slight to them because it's just
No.
they wouldn't know, but it is so helpful and so nourishing for like people to connect in that manner because it is lonely otherwise.
Yeah,
So
and they have
it,
have amazing ideas and they have this better perspective and they usually give me back the advice I would have given them. But for some reason, when they tell me, it's like then I actually listen, right?
you need to hear it and you need to hear it and you need to hear from an outside source because you can't quite hear it from yourself the same way. You are on, first of all, thank you for these real tangible bits of information that people will find, I think, incredibly valuable. Um, People can find you almost on all of the platforms. We're looking at LinkedIn and Chris Dyer 7, TikTok, chrisdyer.com. We've got Instagram, X, Facebook, YouTube. You've got your website as well, chrisdyer.com. So I implore people to reach out. And then at the same time, you'd also given such a great, generous gift of the phone number 33777 Chris for the cheat sheet with the questions. I think that'll be very valuable as well. So thank you so much for sharing so generously with me, with our audience. And I really think this is the kind of stuff that people can get help with when they hear it, when they're feeling alone in their leadership roles and whatever they're going for, whatever they're dealing with in their businesses. So thank you so much, Chris. And we look forward to hopefully having you on again.
Yeah, thank you for having me and creating this amazing space for entrepreneurs.